We always have an excuse to eat. It's not always because the body actually needs it. Everybody can pretty much cut 50% of what they eat, and the body will behave much better. One thing that confuses people is that they think that food is what brings energy to the body. It's not food, it's air. People that are more connected, more spiritual, you will see that they're inclined to go towards higher vibrational foods and less. A whole lot of programs have to get out of your system in order for you to do the initiation properly. Our belief system changes everything about our body, our vibration, and our world. And when you do that, our consciousness and our belief and our emotions ripples out through our heart what we believe about ourselves, and that echoes back. Something in my intuition, my vibration aligned and said, this is possible, and now I need to sort out a new type of science to understand how this actually works. I have a secret to tell you that I don't tell anyone. I came across this about 12 years ago. It was just before, the time that we thought that the world is going to end on December 12th, 21st, 2012. And I was volunteering in Tel Aviv. I was helping people that didn't have any families, making people laugh on buses, stuff like that. We were a big group. And one of the group became my friend. His name was Tal. And he took me to the side after about a month, and he told me, Ray, I have a secret to tell you that I don't tell anyone. And I said, okay, what is it? And then he said, I haven't been eating for a year and 7 months. And I was like, what? It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I'm an engineer. I'm a computer programmer. So, I'm looking for the logic in things. But something in my intuition, my vibration aligned and said, this is possible. I don't believe that Tal is lying to me. And now I need to sort out a new type of science to understand how this actually works. Now, of course, we understand that the world is a type of illusion. We understand that there's energy. We understand that there's many things that we don't really understand that have to do with, the spiritual aspect of a human being and the consciousness of a human being. So immediately what happened to me is that over a course of a few months, my higher guidance, if you want to call it, my intuition, always popped it up. Said, Ray, what is Breatharianism? How does Breatharianism work? Go learn. Go, this is for you. This is something that you're very curious about. And I did ayahuasca in that time. I was very close to a shaman in that time. I was 12 years younger than what I am now. And always ayahuasca showed me, go learn, go learn. So eventually I did. I did a proper, what was called back in the day, a 3 week initiation. Today they are much shorter. Today initiations are like 9 days in a group. There it was more like an extreme vipassana where you're in silence for 3 weeks and you're by yourself and you stop eating completely. And in the first week you also don't drink any water. So it's kind of like dropping into a bomb to your consciousness. Your body is like shrinking, and of course, doctors say today you're going to die if you don't drink for more than 3 or 4 days, and a whole lot of programs have to get out of your system in order for you to do the initiation properly. And so I would say people today are confused about what breatharians are. Breatharians eat very, very little. Some of them that are not in the Western world, that are up there in the Himalayan mountains, that have humidity around them, we call them breatharian level fours. They usually don't eat and don't drink at all. And that's like some of the famous ones have been documented, and they did like all these bunch of tests on them, and they closed them in a hospital for 10 days, and they really don't eat, they don't drink, they don't pee, they don't have bowel movements, like nothing. But us, the Westerners, that still try to balance the regular Western life with some stress and work and family, then yeah, occasional eat. Most of us go down to about 20% of what we used to eat. I would say like I eat like 2 meals a week. I used to eat 1 meal a week, and in the first year I didn't eat at all. I just drank a little bit of juice here and there. But the system changes like considerably. And the challenges are physical, are social, are ego, especially because now, your eyes are very, very open to the fact that you don't have to starve, to the emotional eating aspect of humanity, to the fact that, everything is about food. everything, yeah, and people overindulge, like everything comes out in that, with sweets and with a special cupboard in everybody's kitchen that everybody goes to when they're bored or had a bad day or had an argument. So you become much more aware of all these things that are kind of like controlling you and controlling your ego and your decision making, and you have to work with them to solve them. And that forces you into an extreme type of evolution leap, because once you become all that and you realize all that, and you're even more alienated from society, because before that you were weird, you had weird opinions anyway, you were the one that was talking about channelings and aliens and meditation and mindfulness and peace and love. And now you're not only that crazy guy, but you're the crazy guy that teaches, and you're the crazy guy that doesn't eat, and you're the crazy guy that, as I was on TV a couple of times as well. I was on like what you would call the reality show Survivor in Israel, and I was there as a Breatharian. So they had cameras around me for a month and a half, and they saw that I'm not eating with the rest of the participants, and I'm just like, I have the same amount of energy, and I'm not depleting, and so it goes. People, it's really hard for people in the beginning. It was hard for people to accept it, and then there was a documentary done on me with doctors and blood tests, and they closed me in a place for 8 days with no food and no water. And of course, I said, I'm not a level four. I do consume water and I do eat occasionally. But still, 8 days for them, it was miraculous because they said, you're supposed to die. We're supposed to take you in a stretcher. And the doctors were amazed. My blood tests came back normal. I had electrolyte count. I had high, like everything was okay. Everything was really, really okay. And they were really surprised. So then I wasn't only weird, I was weird with a stamp, like of social approval weird. you know? So they kind of like accepted me. And, workshops started happening after that. I became a little bit more famous for a while. I had my 15 minutes. But now I'm much more tranquil. Now I'm married with 2 kids. I only do a few initiations, like group initiations, a year around the world. And in Israel, people almost completely forgot about it because over here, there's the whole war and political and economical situation that doesn't allow people to really continue their personal development as much as in other countries.
So, if you're not eating, where is the energy coming from?
There's a lot of hypothesis around this, and it's complicated to understand. But it seems like each cell. Let's take it back a little bit further. DNA, right? There's DNA. There's complex DNA of mammals, for example, and then there's basic DNA. For example, trees have basic DNA. Trees can breathe. Trees have a system that can create energy, right? They consume the energy of the sun and they create energy for them. And eventually, when you're eating an apple, you're actually eating the energy of the sun in a different step or a different vibration of it. And the same thing with the
Photosynthesis.
biological cell. A biological
Yeah.
cell
Mhm.
can create energy from light. You can absorb through your skin light. And one thing that confuses people is that they think that food is what brings energy to the body. It's not food, it's air. Because without food, you can survive for a few weeks. And without water, you can supposedly survive for a few days. And without air, your brain will be dead within a few minutes. So it's the quality of the air, it's the depth of the breath, and then it's water, and then it's food. But if you learn how to, that's why it's called breatharianism. If you learn how to bring in the energy through your visualization, through your changing of your belief system, through allowing your body to accept and gradually change the active engine, and you've done this. The active engine can be an energetic engine. Let me give you an example. When you were in love, working on a project that you're excited about, you don't really think about food and time just flies by, right? The time that people do eat is when they look at their clock and they say, oh, it's 7 o'clock in the evening, I haven't eaten all day. And then, poop, your mind sends a message to your tummy. Your tummy says, oh, I should be hungry, and therefore I'm hungry. And as a Breatharian, by the way, we work on separating the am I really hungry or do I feel like having something? Like if I would tell you right now, you seem a little cold, right? You're entering winter, I'll tell you, ooh, How about a nice pea soup or something nice and cozy to get you warm, And then you feel like having it. Before I told you, you didn't think about it too much. So the main engine of a person usually is a physical engine. Yes, they eat food, but the energetic engine exists. It's very, very small. It's deactivated. When is it activated? When you're more in the moment, like when you're a child or an animal, more present. When is it activated? When you're doing things in nature, when you're meditating, when you're doing breath work, like really do good breath work. So that's when it activates a little bit more. So a lot of people that are more connected, more spiritual, you will see that they're inclined to go towards higher vibrational foods and less. So they will do more detoxes, and then they will have a juice, and they won't have this like steak or pizza every day and stuff like that. It's a general thing that they feel like they're aligning into that. So how do we change the engine? For us, we force it. We force a change of a core belief that the individual needs food and needs water. And that's what usually people do in these type of pranic initiations. What we do is that we go through 9 days without any food, four of which are consecutive days also without water. So imagine people coming, 70-year-old, 20-year-old, women, men. I even had a couple of teenagers that came with their parents one day. And we changed that core belief, and they see that on the fourth day of the dry fast, they're still alive and they can still communicate and talk. Yes, the energy is not 100%. Some people are laid back a little bit, but you show them that the body can effectively be more productive with a little bit of energy that they bring in. And that's the final part. Once the body actually cleanses, detoxes its previous toxins, and then everything kind of like moves more efficiently, right? Like a child. A child has the right hormonal balance. The child has the right taste buds. Everything works more efficiently with a child, and that's why they consume very, very little. Not only because they're small, because they need significantly less. What happens is that the food that we take in, it adds to the toxins, it adds to the work that the body needs to do in order to clean itself. The hummingbird, that little one that runs really, really fast, 90% of what the hummingbird drinks is used for its flight, right? So what we're actually saying is that if the hummingbird didn't flip, it would only consume 10% of what it actually needed. So our digestive system takes between 20 and 25%. In addition to that, most of the water we drink goes to the digestive system to help the digestive system digest, and sweat and tongue being moist. So we don't need all of that once we go into drinking just juice and occasionally, once we don't digest. So if a breatharian says, okay, I want to eat, if you eat too much, you will become hungry again. You'll go back to that, the cycle of I'm hungry and then I'm not hungry. A breatharian is never hungry. And then it's a choice. When do you choose to eat? Sometimes it's socially, sometimes it's with the kids, sometimes because it's an occasion, sometimes because it's in the calendar. But usually you just don't think about it that much. You have days of complete dry fast, we call it, with nothing, days of water fast, with water or with a coffee. It's not like you're neglecting yourself. It's that you are allowing yourself occasionally what you used to be really, really addicted to, which is the emotional need that comes from eating. Which, by the way, we can also look at it from a unity point of view, that you're trying to unify with something, because that's what the soul is searching for. It's searching for the godness. And when you're more unified, when you're in a high vibration, you will notice that men become a little bit more feminine and women become a little bit more masculine in the positive masculine features I'm explaining. And then you don't need that as much. You're not looking to fuck, you're looking to make love, you know? You're looking to enjoy a conversation much deeper. You have more time, you have more money, you have 4 or 5 hours every day because you sleep less because your digestive system is not as heavy. And all the energy that has been released is used to the consciousness. So people are telling us that they feel more clear, they feel that they can download information. So the barrier between us and our higher self is a little bit has shrunk, and we become more of our true self. Every one of us has their own type of talents, and then they become more of themselves, and we can really, really see this. Now, it's not for everyone, of course. This is a journey that parents don't like, moms especially don't like, you know. In the beginning, you lose some weight, you don't look as good, and it takes a few months until you balance yourself off with exercise and the body actually adjusts. So it's a completely different world. People don't believe it exists until they do the transition, and then they say, you know something, it was easier than what I thought. And I say, the challenge begins when you go back home, because it's not just about the body and retaining your strength, but it's more about your ego. That, oh, I did something that's impossible, and now I can tell people I'm special and stuff like that. And the second thing is the social issues, which begin. How do I not eating Christmas with everybody, because there's a few months that you're not supposed to eat at all after the initiation. Let your body adjust. Don't remember the muscle, the chewing muscle. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that people go through, especially in the beginning. But from what we see, those that do the first 3 months, usually something is like clicked into the system. Even if they go back to it, they don't go back to it the same amounts, and they can easily, stop for 3, 4 days, have just water again, and so they're kind of like playing around with it. I think that this is not the next evolutionary leap. This is a small group of individuals from humanity that are investigating a potential path.
Hey there, guys. Hopefully, you're loving this podcast with Ray. We're doing podcasts like this twice a week right now. So, if you'd love to stay up to date on what's coming up, please take a moment to hit subscribe. This entire channel and everything you see around here is empowered by your subscription. It's you that powers the channel through your subscription. So, please take a moment, hit subscribe. Thank you so much in advance. You mentioned an evolutionary leap. So, why why are we exploring not eating when so many of the I can understand what you're alluding to there. I think there's a whole conversation for us to explore around emotions and emotional eating and the reliance there, but why, when so much of the world is actually involved in, obsessed with food production, food consumption, it's almost a bit revolutionary to stop participating in that.
Too much of food. Food is supposed to be an enjoyment. We're not supposed to just rely on it all the time. It was my understanding that a lot of souls have come here and incarnated after the Second World War, higher souls, ancient souls, that have seen that the journey of humanity can go in a wrong direction, and the signal came out of Gaia asking for help. And a lot of us kind of like feel like this is normal, and we don't know why. We don't remember why. But I remember that I came from somewhere that didn't have food, and we were type of like energetic beings. And I sometimes have this recollection in my dreams, or in rebirthing exercises. I sometimes have these like visions of who I was or what we were. And a lot of my students feel the same way. It's this awkward feeling that something's wrong with the world and in disalignment, and that we can't really call this home. And yet we're very, very attracted to these type of practices. Or, ice baths, the Wim Hof ice bath, or moving out of our comfort zone in order to mature and learn more about what we're capable of. So everything that we do like that adds. And for me, like, I can't be stale. I like a muscle, it's either that you grow and strong or you atrophy. So I always try to seek things that are going to teach me the next step for me. And when I did Breatharianism, I didn't realize, but that was the last one. When I did that, a lot of things started making sense to me, and I didn't find any more challenges, and I didn't find any more things that I can really change, like a core belief. I follow Bashar, if you know Bashar, and Bashar always teaches this. He also mentioned Breatharians a few times, and teaches that we're really changing. Our belief system changes everything about our body, our vibration, and our world. And when you do that, when you get into this high vibration, and one of the ways to get into a high vibration is to don't ground yourself with food. So you cut that rope, and then your consciousness is really free to see and perceive it. So that's why it's attracting to B plus. Once I heard about it one time and I saw at least one person that did it, then I know it's feasible. And once I know it's feasible, I know that I can do it too. If you would start flying, I would fly after you, because I would have that belief that if he's flying and I don't see, any like technological things or anything like that, I would say, okay, if it's just my belief, I believe I can see it, therefore I can do it. And from there on, it's just testing until I succeed.
Yeah, the belief seems to be a central sort of linchpin in this entire mechanism you mentioned before in
That's right.
the initiations, that it's the belief that you're really working on, it seems, and that somehow also alludes to the fact that innately we have this capacity and capability within us. And I think that leads back to what you're saying about children inherently having this ability. And then interestingly, as we get older, we're just sort of packing more toxins in. So many questions in there. Firstly, around the current state of the food in the world and what that means about that. Maybe I'll pause there. I've got like a string of questions, but maybe I'll pause there. Your awareness on the current state of the quality of the food in the world?
Wow, this is a big question because, on the one side, if you eat very bad food, but your belief system and your body knows how to clean it, you let your body have the time it needs to detox, which means not eating 3 meals a day, then you should be fine. On the other hand, those that do tend to eat the best vibration and highest quality of food, you know, it's all about the amount. Because what happens is that if I eat and I stuff myself and eat and I stuff myself and eat, it doesn't matter what the quality of the food is. I'm generally creating more things for my body to clean up, and I'm not letting it have the time to clean up because the body is really amazing. If you stop eating now for 5 days, just water, it's going to cleanse your liver. It's going to cleanse all the antibiotics that you ever had in your life. It's like it really does this quite quickly. We just never let it get there. So I would say that people today eat far too much. I'm talking about the West. Yeah, I'm not talking about this. They eat far too much than what they should eat. We have been programmed by society. The plates have been become bigger and bigger because the eyes become bigger and bigger. I'm not talking about, you guys are doing great comparatively, but I'm talking about places like United States, like places like England, places like a lot of countries that are now sinking in sugar and in flour and all these type of things. So I would say everybody can pretty much cut 50% of what they eat, and the body will behave much better. You will have less sickness, you will sleep less, but it's just about getting there and allowing those 3-4 days of adaptation. Because in the beginning, your stomach is going to go, I'm hungry, but no, you're not really hungry. You just used to eating a lot. You stretched your boundaries. You need to have a smaller tummy, and then you'll want a little bit less as well. But it's really hard to convince people. Now, something funny. That they say that men, when they go over 40, they start to have a belly and they lose their hair and stuff like that. That our metabolism only changes by 2% in a decade. So it's not the metabolism in a decade, 2% in a decade. So it's not the metabolism, it's everything around it. It's the fact that now you have money and you go to restaurants more. It's the fact that mommy is not telling you can't have another piece of cake and you eat many pieces of cake. It's the fact that your friends and your wife are getting a little bit bigger, so you feel more comfortable, or you got married, so you're not 20, 30 years old going to the gym trying to look good to impress the other, potential partners. So you start neglecting yourself. So people, they don't really think about it, but our body, the body of the hunter, wasn't getting fat when they were 40 years old. It's just now because of our Netflix in the evening, and everything is very accessible, and fast food and stuff like that. If you eat quality food and you eat significantly less, nothing's going to change. You're still going to look good, you're still going to feel good, you're still going to be healthy.
There's an interesting point in this conversation where I find when I do like a 3-day fast myself, which I'll do occasionally, there's this weird thing that happens. I'm only realizing this as I'm talking to you. The next meal is always approached with a bit of apprehension, actually. But I don't dry fast. I water fast, and I drink a lot of water through my fasts. But I always acknowledge it, like on day 3, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna eat a meal. am I really ready? There's that feeling, and I'm wondering right now what that feeling's all about, as to whether I should just keep going on the fast.
You can.
It's
It's
really
all about the
interesting.
number of days that you pre-intended. If it's going to be 5 days, on day 3 or 4, you're going to start asking yourself, maybe I should eat. Maybe it's okay. I did whatever it is that I planned on doing. But if your plan would have been for a week, then you would ask yourself the same question on day 6. You can. Most people don't understand. You can go much further than that. Yeah. And imagine this. Imagine eating like twice a week. Imagine having sex once a year. You'll be excited about it, won't you? You'll be like, oh, this is a ceremonial thing. You'll be thinking about it ahead of time. You'll be like, oh, wow. But if you eat every day, then you don't really appreciate it. It's like, I need fuel. What should I eat now? But if you eat like once a week, then you're excited about it. It tastes better. You take the time. You don't eat in front of TV. You do it in harmony, in a ceremonial way. You drink your soup with a teaspoon. You want to take the time, enjoy it much more, especially because you're not doing it because you're hungry. You're doing it because you feel like it. You chose to do it. So you're not just gonna have something plain like rice. You're gonna have something special. Yeah.
Oh man, still so many questions. Yeah, how many people do you find that go through this process struggle really hard with the beliefs?
The process itself is easier than what most people think, because once you do it in a group formation and you see everybody's with you and their beliefs is approximately the same, the body takes more time to make the leap that the consciousness does. Usually, people that are coming to the event, they already start playing with this concept because they sign up half a year in advance, and a week before they do a detox week. And the first question I ask them when they come is, how many of you felt ever since you paid the deposit, actually signed up, not thinking about it, but committed, have your relationship with food changed in a way that you feel significantly less hungry? And most people raise their hand. And then I asked them the second question: how many of you feel that ever since you started eating less because of this concept, you started noticing that your dreams are more active around, food and water, and because there's a type of fear and excitement when you come to this type of event, because they think that they're never going to eat afterwards again. And then I calm them down and I tell them, you are going to eat, but not in the coming months. The coming months, you dedicate yourself to forgetting about food, to deprogramming your beliefs, to detaching from everything that you used to know, and then you will slowly rebuild it from a different perspective, without that attachment, without hunger itself. Some people come and they never feel hungry again. Even those that go back to eat, they don't feel hungry again. While others struggle a little bit and they feel hunger here and there. And then I give them a breathing technique, or I explain to them that the hunger is a sensation that will come and go. But the further you are along in the process, the time between the gaps between the hungers are becoming longer and longer until eventually it just disappears. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's a different kind of concept. Of course, for me, it's the way that I live for the last 12 years. So yeah, I'm kind of used to it. But when I explain it to somebody new, I can understand the curiosity.
What was the last meal you had?
2 days ago, I had a meal with my wife. I'm a
Man, was it
vegetarian
yummy?
generally. Huh?
It was yummy? Like,
Yes, of course.
yeah. Yeah, I love the concept of how you're describing how ritualistic um, food must become in that space when you're consciously bringing yourself to it. You mentioned there are level 4 breatharians. That alludes there are at least 4 levels of breatharian. Can you run us through the different levels?
Sure. So, level one is a person that doesn't really know anything about Breatharianism, but they understand now that food has a vibration, and that when they eat certain things, it affects their body in a different way. So some of them are playing with the concept of eating less, or occasional fasting, like intermittent fasting. Level twos are people who are already familiar with fasting and having it as a way of life. So it's either intermittent fasting, 8, 16, 8, or once a month, a few days of fasting. Like people who are aware that fasting heals and cures and it's good for them and they feel better when they're fasting. Level threes are people who are initiated in like a group initiation, like what I teach, and I think there's at least 4 or 5 guides in the world that teach. Each one of us teaches a little bit different. I'm more like a mental, spiritual. I less work on the emotions and cleaning the emotional body, but more of the understanding and explaining how everything makes sense, and then working on the core belief systems. So once you go through level three, a lot of the level threes from the 100% that they used to eat, they would go down to maybe 20%, 30%. Some of them even go down to 5%. I'm somewhere in the 20%, I would say. When in the first 6 months, I did actually test myself and counted calories and stuff like that. So I went from about 3,000 calories a day to about 400 calories a day on average. So those are level threes. Again, they're playing with this concept. And level fours are very unique. The understanding that we don't need water, it's not that we don't need water, it's that the water comes into their body through their pores. The skin absorbs the water, and therefore they usually live in a place that has humidity. So it's either up high in the mountains somewhere. There's one in India. There's another one that is in the Maldives. Like places that have humidity, they will not be able to survive in the desert or in a closed place for too long. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Now, level fours have this unique calling. For example, if you would look, there's a Breatharian documentary called "In the Beginning There Was Light," and they were describing there a guy called Prajani, which is considered to be a very highly spiritual being in India. And he said that when he was 8 years old, he had an epiphany, and he saw an angel calling him and telling him that from this day forward, you're not to eat and not to drink. And another guy exactly the same. So they have this concept of something told me, a divine being showed themselves to me in one way or another and told me that I have to stop. When I asked, for example, when I built my workshop, by the way, I had a couple of interviews with one of the Bashar's channelers because there were things that I was scared shitless. You know, you're taking people through 4 days of dry fasting with no insurance. Like that's scary, but I was called to do it. So I felt like, okay, I have to understand more. So I asked him a whole bunch of questions about what I should do. And he calmed me down. He said, look, this is one of the things that were chosen by you, by your soul as a destiny. So your whole life, you were kind of like prepared for this. You know the type of meditations that you need to know, the concept of the four spiritual bodies that we will talk about here, and the amount of days. And I was like, man, should I learn how to channel? Should I? He said, no, calm down. Everything is going to be okay. You have everything that it takes. And it was right. The template of the process, the workshops and the yoga and the techniques and stuff, it hasn't really changed in 12 years ever since I made that. But one of the questions I had for him is, should I become a Breatharian level 4? To show, because I'm one of these people that can communicate on TV and I can explain myself and I look grounded, so I don't look like a very spiritual hippie, talking nonsense type of guy. And I felt like this is the calling that I should introduce this type of information to normal people, to mainstream. So that's what I did. So I said, if I become a Breatharian level 4, I can do that even more. And he said, you don't need to do that. This is not your true calling. And it will be a very painful process if you choose to do it. Like the body of people who are Breatharian level 4s has been predetermined to become a more energetic body, a light-based body, a higher vibration body from birth. So it's easier for them to do the Breatharian level 4 process, which can take months. There is no teacher for Breatharian level 4. It's a calling that you do by yourself.
Alrighty, guys, question from Amrit. I would love to find out from you, is this something you've been curious about before, Breatharianism? Has this come across your path? Is this the first time? What are you contemplating? What are you thinking? Are you going to give it a try? Are you going to start with a little bit of a fast? Do you have a bit of a fasting practice at home? So many questions. Take your pick of the litter. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Back to today's episode. You mentioned the four spiritual bodies, and the conversation was always going to take a turn towards the spiritual here today. Because you've also already mentioned like more energetic bodies, more light bodies.
Yes.
And one of my teachers says, we're going from being human beings to being lumen beings. Humus is of the earth and lumen being of the light. And so we're sort of going through this shift,
You can look at it.
which I've got
You
so
can
many
look at it like
questions.
this. It's true. When I mention the four bodies, it's not the spiritual bodies. There's like four bodies that needs to be balanced if you want to maintain this vibration of pranic nourishment. Um, the physical body, you already know that you need to exercise and eat well. And the emotional body that is connected to the spiritual, the physical body is how much do I control my emotions and aware of their source, and how much do they control me. It's okay to be afraid, it's okay to be jealous, but we can't let it control us, and our thoughts can't be negative, all the time, because again, that will put us in a vibration of lower vibrational thoughts, and then the body again will be hungry. And the third body is the spiritual body, and the spiritual body is something that most people don't understand that they're taking with them. It's not only about comprehension of the soul, the concept that I'm not a human being seeking a spiritual journey, but a spirit seeking a human journey, a very short human journey. So there's like something that is bigger. It's your connection to your inner child, the one that believes and imagines and is happy and wants to help and is innocent. We're not innocent anymore. We stopped dreaming. We stopped imagining like children do. And because we were taught that it's not okay to be in our mind and it's not okay to be happy all the time and we have obligations, and we were taught that this is the world, so we forgot. And the last is the mental body, the one that's responsible for the belief system. When you look at the placebo effect, you will understand the strength and the power of the belief. When a mother can lift a car, she doesn't have the muscle for it because her child is stuck under that. Or when a person has a reason to live and suddenly they immediately cure their stage 4 cancer, spontaneous healing that has been documented all over the world. These things have to do directly with your belief system. What am I capable of doing? And that stretches your, you could say, influence on the matrix, on the Maya, on the illusion of the world, which we know is a type of illusion. We know it's a dream world that our consciousness and our belief and our emotions affect. It ripples out through our heart what we believe about ourselves, and that echoes back. So when we change that belief about ourselves, suddenly our body changes much more, because the body is the antenna. The body is the thing that connects us, connects the soul to this weird ass illusion place that we call Earth. you know? So when you change that, imagine changing just a small belief about now you sleep 7 hours a night. What about if I sleep six? So how long will it take me to adjust to sleep six? And I'm talking about waking up without an alarm clock. Waking up when I know that six is enough. What will my body have to do? My body will actually have to shorten my sleep cycle by about 10 minutes. I will be drowsy and sleepy in the first couple of days. Again, what I'm telling you now will become your belief, because I'm telling you a process that everybody goes through when they're shortening, right? When you go to college, when you need to sleep less in your life here and there. That's a core belief. And then in the end of that, you will sleep 6 hours. And then you will question yourself, if I can do six, maybe I can do five. If I can do five, maybe I can do four. And do that with food. So instead of going from 100% to 90% to 80, make the jump to 20 and mildly adjust to 30 if you need a little bit more. That is the pranic initiation. You make the leap and then you adjust. After a course of a couple of months, you see how your family reacts, how your spouse reacts, how your body reacts. But you make that big jump immediately instead of doing it over a course of many, many years and by yourself. That's the four bodies. And if you balance your four bodies like that, it will be much easier for you afterwards.
Evolution, Ray. So, because I imagine now's probably a point in time where we gorge ourselves on food more than ever before, right? I'm talking about mainstream. And so when you look at evolution in our past, were we generally eating less? And potentially, was there even a point where we were breatharians in our history, and then we've sort of evolved
That's a
into
tough
eating food? And
question. I would
did you
assume
see
that
us
in
going?
some places in the world,
Mm,
yes, it was practiced much more. If you're talking like taking it way back, then we didn't eat every day. We ate when we had food. In the wintertime, we ate less. We didn't know how to preserve. We hunted and we only could eat fresh because our stomach couldn't, we're not like an eagle or scavengers that can eat like bodies. So we ate when we had, and therefore, in between, the body detoxed. And this is something that is missing today, the detox phase. It begins after 8 hours with no food. Then your body starts taking in whatever glucose is in the system, and then slowly it's taking in from the fat. And after you do it for a very long time without practice, it can also take some muscle. So that's the detox that everybody's talking about, people doing weekends and juice fasts and stuff like that. That's very, very healthy. And we stopped doing that. It's more about, it's less about the quality of the food, and more about the quantity of the food.
And do you think in the future we're moving towards something evolutionary
No,
sort of mechanism towards eating
I don't
less?
see it that way. Unless something very big is going to happen that's going to surprise us, like meeting our space cousins or something that will shift the consciousness of humanity towards, health and green and unity. The way that it's going now, I don't see it happening. I see that the group, what I see is, how would you call this in English? I see a split in humanity. I see a group moving into one direction and a group not going backwards but staying where it is. This group is small. This group is small and it's slowly separating. You see these people that are going back to communities, people leaving their countries, people seeking, jobs that are more in alignment with their time, family time and couple time, and like these type of people are like separating. I don't know what will actually happen. There's different theories about, the earth splitting and some souls moving forward while some are staying backwards. But from what I see, it's the poles. It's the stretch of the poles. Duality is becoming much more clear. What is going to stay behind and what is moving a little bit forward, and it's really about how you perceive yourself. Do you perceive yourself as an like an altruistic person? Are you doing things to progress humanity? You obviously are. It's really about selfishness versus. Have you ever read The Law of One, the raw material?
I was
So you
just having
remember
that conversation today.
the
Yeah.
definition of selfishness versus altruism. That's where the soul actually resides. When you stop acting selfish and only on your own interest and you start acting towards the good and the betterment of humanity, then you know that something inside you has really shifted. Like what you're doing now, what you're doing is aligned with your destiny. I like the Japanese word ikigo. It's like your destiny. It's what the world really needs. Like it all aligns, and your personal, yeah, your personal talents as well. They're kind of like all aligned together. And then what you're doing is you're allowing people to listen to individuals who have made leaps in order for them to understand that they can achieve that. You're creating a placebo. You're creating a belief that if one person can do it, and if they would see 100 people do it, then it will be much easier, right? So we are doing things for humanity, and we're evolving ourselves, and by that we teach others. You know, we're leaving a breadcrumb trail of how it's done.
You mentioned you were a vegetarian. Is there some sort of karmic balance of certain foods that we eat that you're aware of?
Yeah, I can't eat death. I'm not, I don't lecture people on what they eat. I don't lecture people at all. I don't judge them. But I know what the animal goes through now. If there will be like lab grown meat in the future, then I will be able to eat that because that didn't have a soul and that wasn't tortured and taken away from its parents and stuff. But as long as it has that, then I won't be able to. I understand that what I eat has a vibration, and I can't accept the vibration of that low magnitude.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally, and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing, and Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him, and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate, because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. Energy centers. We've talked about vibration and frequency a little bit here today. There's different energy centers in the body, different energy mechanisms. There's so many different things I could ask you about this, but I'd just sort of hand it over to you from that particular place and share what you will. Yeah.
You know, like our veins and our arteries can get clogged, right? There's there's fat that's stuck there. There's usage that takes time, you know, when we mature. And just like that, our energetic centers and the veins of our energy, like the way that it moves through our body, can also have different resistances. For example, sickness. Sickness creates a resistance in the energy centers, sometimes around a specific area, and sometimes it's the whole body. Now, when you don't eat well, and when you don't act well, and when you don't think well, those energy centers can be hurt or affected. And then what happens is that you're just a little bit disaligned. It means that your body is not working in complete harmony. That disalignment can eventually create a sickness, or it can attract certain different energies that you don't really want. Some people would say that different entities, that lower vibrational entities that create a sensation that we dislike reality right now. It's not different than the worms that are stuck in our stomach that are telling us, give me more sugar, right? They say that there's a lot of worms and I want more sugar. I don't know why I want more sugar. They are creating a chemical imbalance that creates a sensation that I need more sugar. So in the same way, there's different energies that can be attracted to me if I take the wrong type of drug, or if I think the wrong type of way for a very long time. So these type of things happen on a day-to-day basis. And if you're not aware of them, then it will be extremely hard for you to understand that you're being manipulated by something, and it's not necessarily you. And when you open your eyes, like I like it, it's called the Jesus way, and you say, whatever it is out there, I love you, but I don't want you next to me right now. You know, I bid you farewell. Thank you. You've served your purpose, and as a conscious being, sentient being in a human body, I have what is called free will, and you do not. And therefore, I use my free will to get rid of you, for example. So I can only tell you that the body of the child works more efficiently because their energy channels are completely open, right? Completely open. Think about it like if I want to take this and move it in water, I will have a resistance. But if I move it in air, there's no resistance at all. So that's what happens when we eat too much, or that's what actually happens to everyone. That's why we age a little bit more, and that's why we think, and that's why we kind of like forget the happiness and I would say the excitement that life has. It also has to do with food, and it also has to do with our energy. Yeah, that's why, by the way, Breatharians hardly get sick. Like, it's rare.
Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, I'm talking about the last time I was sick was COVID. I got COVID when I was teaching in the United States. And before that, 8 years, no headaches, no sickness, no nothing until now. Like, I haven't taken, I work in a regular job some of the time, and I haven't taken one sick day in 10 years. I know it sounds weird. Like, I can feel sometimes, in the beginning of winter, I can feel like my body says, Ray, something is coming. And I'm like, okay, I'll dress up a little bit warmer, and I'll take more walks, and I'll do stuff like that. I do ice baths as well. And that's it. Like, my body's telling me you're getting somewhere. I say, okay, well, I'm in control here. You don't have to. I understand the warning. Thank you very much. I will adjust, and that's it. So some people say that viruses and sickness are also a type of vibration. For example, when Bashar was asked about the injection that everybody got, and everybody was like really afraid, nanoparticles and robotics, and they're trying to kill us and stuff like that. I said, if your mind will be affected by it, like if you have a core belief that the injection was bad for you, it will be bad for you. But most of you don't have to worry about it. It wasn't really manipulated. And if it was bad for you and you're in a higher vibration of whatever it is, then you shouldn't be affected at all. The problem is, when somebody tells you, don't think about the dancing pink elephant, what do you think about? The dancing pink elephant, right? So it's about distraction. This is what you do with kids as well, and with your brain. This is what master meditators do. We distract our monkey mind by breathing, by thinking positive and optimistic thoughts, and we reprogram our inner wiring to be better.
So it's called Pranic living. And so that alludes to there's some history of this steeped in, well, the word prana for me comes from India. The history and the origins of some of this work.
It is. It's prana. It's the energy of life. It comes from, my understanding, it comes from Sanskrit. In Japan and China, they call it chi, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, and so does that mean there's been breatharians in the history of India already that have sort of paved the way forward for this body of work?
Oh, yeah. This has only come to the West in the last 50 years, I would say, maybe even 30 years. It was brought to you guys, to Australia, by Jasmuheen. And she has her own story, of course. She's, I think, one of the most famous breatharians. She wrote many, many books about it. Of course, the processes back in the day were a little bit different. The frequency of Earth and the acceptance of people now are much higher. So it's easier to do the transition. And they had that in India, and they had that in different tribes. Even for Indians like natives, there was the vision quest, right? The vision quest is 4 days under a tree when you mark. So many different tribes have these rituals of not eating in order to be more connected. Unfortunately, the great three monatomic religions, is that how they're called? The single God religions, they created fasting as a type of torture. Like in our religion, Judaism, fasting is in order to torture yourself to ask for forgiveness. But originally, I don't believe that it was like that. Originally, I believe it was in order for you to detox, so you will have that higher connection that I'm talking about.
Clearer connection
in order to connect
to God.
more with God, with the divine.
Yeah. It's really interesting because you also have in many of those faiths 40 days and 40 nights of, the leader having gone away and fasted for a certain period of time and come back with some level of information, body knowledge.
Makes
And
sense.
it's always quite profound. And then feeling into kind of what you're saying about, potentially going for quite some time without food and water. People must be supremely connected in other ways.
Another teacher that works with me, her name is Leslie. She's 60. She's from the UK. And she said that the opposite happened to her. Instead of becoming more, she was afraid of becoming even more disconnected from reality. And what happened with her is that she became a little bit more grounded. And so the opposite actually happened. And she said that this is what she actually wanted. Because, a lot of us, we're already flying up there. And we're already really good with that. And a lot of people already come with a little bit experience in fasting, with a little experience in understanding more about themselves, what brings them joy, I would say. That's the one question. And other people, I really look at them. Like, if I have a 20, 30 people group and we're doing an initiation, I know that there's one or two that will need more assistance, more talking in the middle of the night, more conversations about their traumas and stuff like that, because this is something that happens during these type of changes, life shifts or workshops, retreats. A lot of things come up to the surface to be healed and to be recognized. A lot of things that for a man, for example, if you suppress and suddenly it comes up and like, okay, I need to admit it. It's okay. It happened, it's all fine. And now it's time to process it on an emotional level, on a mental level, accept it and put it behind me. So some people it's like that. And other people I just tell them, okay, now that you stopped eating, I can see that you're flying up there. Instead of you going into a manic state, yoga, walking barefoot, sun showers, walking in nature, hugging a tree, talking to a good friend. Like make a list of the things that ground you and start using those instead of what used to ground you, which is food. You understand?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think there's a sort of opportunity to also soak up more life through some of those practices when you're actually investing in the time spent to just enjoy those practices. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, as opposed to spending the time. Not saying that, again, this is an interesting conversation. I can feel my own limiting beliefs around food. Not saying that you shouldn't spend time eating food, but I could imagine you'd have more time to spend, but you'd also spend time consciously going, okay, now's a great time to go for a walk, or now's a great time to do such and such, right?
On average, because you sleep a little bit less, and because you don't have the preparation of food, eating food, cleaning up the food, you have about 4 more hours every day. So usually what I tell my students is that, what did you always say that you don't have time to do? Do it, If you don't have money right now, take another job or extend your shifts or do stuff like that. I became an artist after my initiation, like an immediate artist. After 2 weeks, all I wanted to do is to just create and do this like really cool stuff. It kind of explodes from you. Now that you have more time, you can use that time more wisely. Other people sometimes don't understand that time is a gift, and then they're just watch more TV or get stuck more in front of, But if you're doing something that you enjoy, like when I was 40 a couple of years ago, I bought myself this huge screen in order for me to go back to being a gamer, like when I was 16 years old. Because I told my wife, I'm looking for something to bring me joy, in the nights. I know that I won't be able to beat all those, 10-year-old kids that have the best instincts now.
The best reflexes in the world. Yeah.
Exactly. So I bought a huge screen and I bought, the VR glasses and I started exploring. And that's what I do now, a couple of times a week in the evening. I just take an hour or two and do things that really excite me. Even though for other people, they're like, well, why don't you mature, this is maturing. I am mature. I'm going back to being connected to the inner child that misses, these type of adventures in gaming. That's maturity for me.
So For people that are tuning into this conversation, I realize we probably should have started the podcast there with the amount of the entrepreneurs are like, yeah, more time. Yeah, I could do with 4 more hours a day. Why not?
I would say that the time is one of the best gifts that you get. Of course, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and of course, there's challenges. The challenges are mostly your own ego. When you come up to a conversation with people that are eating normally, which normal people eat normally, and you're trying not to sound condescending, and you're trying not to sound like you know more than they do. And if you sit with them and you don't eat, and then again, they're going to bombard you with questions. You don't want to make them feel that they're doing something that's wrong in some way, and you have to answer truthfully and answer in a way that they can understand. Like my father is an Orthodox rabbi. I can't tell him about this in the way that I understand. So I tell them that it's like an angel, and I'm giving him, different rabbis from the Old Testament that went into the caves for a few months or years, and all they had was like one fruit tree. And I'm telling him it's the divine, right? It's a divine connection. And I don't say higher self, I say the angels. You have to find the right way to explain this, because it's not an easy subject to explain, because you're trying to explain just to the mental body. But there's something higher than this that understands that this is feasible. And if tens of thousands of people are living this way in the world, and there are tens of thousands of people that have experienced it in one way or another, then it's not only feasible, then everybody can actually do it. And the question is, why do they do it? For what reason? And should I? Is this calling out for me in exploration, And why has synchronicity brought me to this podcast, to this YouTube channel, to this specific post, Why has synchronicity brought it to me so I can open my eyes and understand certain things, about myself, my capabilities?
And so what happens when people do feel the synchronicities and the call?
Well, usually they would not act on it out of fear. Again, we all do that quite a lot. We fear of changing a job, we fear of changing a partner, because we think that whatever it is that is behind the veil is going to be less. And we know people that have made that type of mistake. And sometimes when we let go of the ego, which creates the fear out of a protection mechanism, the ego just protects the character that we have. When we let go of that fear, we find that usually our intuition and the synchronicity were right to show us something. And when we act about it, we can see retroactively why it had to happen in that time. You understand? Like usually I would say the intuition, even when I have, one time I lost like all my money when I was like, I don't know, 28, but I was divinely guided to lose all my money. I was so naive, and that was like a wake up call for me to say that people are not always nice. You should always watch your back. Not everybody thinks like you. So, but I couldn't understand it in that point in time. I was like, why the hell did I do this? And I'm blaming myself, and I'm blaming my consciousness, and I'm blaming my guidance. But retroactively, you understand that this had to happen in that time, because after that, the chain reaction was for your betterment. So you take a step back in order to jump 2 steps forwards. And this is usually the way that it works. It's like it trends like this.
And for those of us that are tuning into this podcast from home and want to get started, how do we get started? What's a good place to start?
Play with the concept of, am I really hungry when I eat this? So dinner came. Am I eating because I have to finish my plate? Am I eating because I'm really hungry? And don't eat if you're not hungry. Very plainly. Don't judge yourself if you do eat, because it's a dessert and there's always an occasion, a birthday or something. But try to see if you're really hungry. And if you're not hungry, don't eat. And then start playing around with this concept of what is really emotional eating. Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I'm lonely? Is it because I had a bad day at work? We always have an excuse to eat. It's not always because the body actually needs it. And then the second thing that you should do is once a week, try to do a 1-day water fast. Just an attempt with no success and no failure. Just try. Let go of the food for 24 hours and see what happens in the body. Maybe in the afternoon you'll feel a little bit tired, so take a nap or rest a little bit. But after you do it several weeks, your body is going to get very, very comfortable. And actually, you will feel like you're more clear. And then you can try to go instead of 24 hours, maybe try to go a day and a half or even 2 days. As long as you're drinking water, it's okay. When you do these two things, you're going to open yourself up to a lot of different, you can say, subjects, thoughts. What can I do with this? Is this really good for me? And then usually people will go on from there. Some people join a Breatharian initiation because they want to take it to the end. Like I said, it's better for us to just cut everything and then start adjusting. And some people just, apply it in intermittent fasting, and some people don't do anything with it at all. But this would be the way to approach it.
Yeah. What do you think about people that struggle with like autoimmune challenges and stuff like that, and they approach like elimination diets of sorts? One of the things I'm looking squarely in the face is the carnivore diet. There's so many people that are just only eating meat now. I don't know if you've seen this trend online. Yeah, your thoughts on the carnivore diet?
I think it's very individual. I mean, even my wife, which was like an 80-10-10, the extreme type of vegan, she went back to eating occasional meat because she was just missing iron and other stuff. Now, of course, she's living with me, so with me, everything is about the belief. But she really felt when she was pregnant, she started eating meat again. And now she eats like once every 2 weeks, something like that. So I understood in the beginning it was hard for me because now we cook for the kids meat as well, and it's hard for a vegetarian to have these type of things around him all the time until I embraced it and accepted that it's better for them right now, and if they choose whatever it is that they choose in the future, it will be good for them. I would say if it works for people and they see that the blood tests are good after a couple of years, then that's the diet for them. If it works for them, everyone is very, very different and unique. I will do whatever makes you feel good.
And do you think most people that approach this, like you said, everybody has their own sort of journey with it. But do you see yourself like this is something that is long term? Like there's no coming back from this, right?
Are you talking about meat?
Specifically, yeah, for you.
No, I'm not going to eat meat. I'm not the type of person that.
Oh, not so much meat, but in terms of your relationship and dynamic with like being on 20 to 30% calories. Sorry, I can understand how you got there.
It comes and goes. Like I noticed that in the time of COVID, I was more depressed, so I ate more. And I went to, I don't know, a few years ago, I went to Burning Man, and there I decided to eat every day dinner. And like it really fluctuates. In the beginning, both of my kids have issues, communication issues, growing up, and that takes a toll, an emotional toll on me. So in the first couple of years when they were born, I was in and out of breatharianism. I was like eating a little bit, I was fasting for a week, and then I came back. So I don't really know what the future holds. I'm much more in the present now. And I can see like I was more excited about it back in the day. The lessons for me have decreased of living this style of life. Do you understand? Like in the beginning, it was a lot. It was teaching it. It was learning about the statistics. It was making materials and going on podcasts and writing books and stuff like that. Now it's not as exciting as it was before. Maybe if I would find something completely new, maybe I will put it aside. But I will never go back to eating like 3 meals a day, every day almost. It doesn't add up to me. It doesn't make sense that much. If I would go back, it would be once a day, something small in the evening, and then every couple of weeks have a fast. Like, I like fasting. Fasting is fun for me. Fasting is it's like it's clear. I don't need to do anything today. All I do is I go to my computer, I work, I exercise. Eating is what complicates me because then what should I eat? When should I eat? Should I wait for my wife? Should we go out? Should we eat in? I don't like making too many decisions.
And you mentioned exercising in these prolonged fasted states. There's this common belief about muscle atrophy and stuff like that when we're not consuming calories. Your thoughts on any of that sort of stuff?
if we're talking mild exercise, I'm talking about like yoga, walking, stuff like that. That can work. It doesn't matter because it's not really building new muscles. It's true that people that go on a long fast, especially if the body is not trained for it, that the body will consume more muscle. It will eat in the beginning the glucose that is available, and then it will eat the fat, and then it will also take from the muscle because it seems that it's easier for the body to break a muscle, and that's why it's easier for it to create energy out of that. But if you adapt, again, the longer you exercise in fasting, and the more your body understands, you really become sort of like a camel with water. Like a camel can drink a lot of water, right? So if, for example, right now you drink very little amounts of water, but throughout your entire day, you are teaching your body that this is the way that you bring it. But if you will stop and for 1 month you will drink just 1 cup of water in the morning, 1 cup of water in the evening, then your body will adapt and create a mechanism that preserves the water and spends it wisely. So the same thing with people who practice fasting. The longer you fast and the better you have adjusted your belief system about your capabilities during a fast. If you go 3 days on water and you tell yourself, oh, I have to rest, it has to be in a weekend, it has to be next to nature, then that is what your body will actually require. If you exercise, you'll become more tired and stuff. But if you adjust to the fact that this is life, I'm going to live my life, I'm going to go to work, I'm not saying it's easy, but in the beginning, like you can be tired while you're fasting, but then with time, your body actually shows that, it's okay, I'm used to it.
Spiritual benefits. Do you see some people coming to this purely for spiritual benefits?
Oh, yeah. Because again, the mind cannot understand Breatharianism. It's hard for us. I can't tell you where the iron comes from and where the vitamins come from. And I can't tell you. I can only tell you that I'm practicing an extreme form of caloric restriction. Okay, I've moved from 3,000 to 500 calories a day, and my body adjusted. That will make sense to the mind. It will not make sense to tell you I don't bring anything at all. But if I would tell you that for an entire year, I didn't take any supplements, I didn't take any proteins, and still I exercised and still I gained muscles back to what I lost, for example. How can that be? The mind cannot accept it. So it has to be a spiritual reasoning. It has to be a spiritual, you have to understand it on a level of something that you know something, it makes sense to me, but I can't explain it. I can't explain it, but it makes sense to me. And that's what the people that come to these type of events, they see me and they relate to me. We have a sort of contract that hasn't been fulfilled, so they recognize me from somewhere, and they want me to guide them because they understand that I'm making sense in one way, but I can't even explain it. Look, all our conversation now, a whole hour, I've explained to you so many things. You know so much now, and it makes more sense, and yet I cannot put the science stamp on it of how this actually works. Only that we have done it and we've seen the difference in caloric intake, and that we call that difference prana. And it has other precautions on our life as well. There's other advantages and stuff that happen that are very, very positive. And we call it prana. That's the way we decided to name it. So it's still not something that I can explain, right? Or prove.
I find that exceptional given your background as an engineer as well. It's just, yeah, because I'm sure at some point, some part of you was hungry for answers, and then just the proof in the pudding of your own body and that softening.
Our science is not accurate science. It's a science of observation and learning by the observation, creating theories. That's our science, right? The theory of evolution is just a theory. Nobody proved it. The theory of the Big Bang is a theory. We haven't proved it. Yeah, but we take it for granted because somebody taught it to us, and we say, this is what most people think right now. God is a theory. We haven't proved it, but we believe in it. Incarnations, I believe in it. I haven't been proven.
So, Ray, what is the legacy that you're hoping to leave behind? It doesn't necessarily have to be with Breatharianism. It could also be as a father, as a partner. Yeah, what is a legacy that you're hoping to leave through?
Nobody ever asked me this question. I want to make a difference in the world, and I'm not feeling that I'm making a big enough difference. You understand? Like I'm creating now. We have a big project in Costa Rica. We have about 600 dunam. That's like 150 acres of people who want to live more connected to the jungle, more connected to nature, and kids that are educated mostly, some of them from home, some of them know something that is a little bit more open. I think that everything that has to do with emotional eating and everything that has to do with personal development, I would say. I don't want to call it spiritual development because for a lot of people, when you say spiritual, it has to do with religion, and I'm not a religious person. So I would say when I say God, I can say creation, nature, oneness. So I believe that everybody should be working on their personal development and on their awareness. And that starts with understanding how we tick, why we think the way that we think, what what is the source of our thoughts slash beliefs, and start pulling those threads. So I would say that's what I want. Breatharianism has brought me that by 10 times more than what I expected. I had a lot of experiences within the first years of a Breatharian, enough for a lifetime. So even though I'm only 42 now, I feel like I'm 60, 70 years old in the experiences that I had. I told my wife many times, I can die now happy, knowing that I've fulfilled whatever it is that I wanted, and I'm just sticking around for you, for the kids, for some future Breatharians that I'm going to teach. But yeah, I would say I would love for that to be my legacy. Of course, my ego wants to be more out there, more known, to talk in front of hundreds of people and not just, a couple of dozens. But that's the ego. It's different than the plan that we have for ourselves. So thank you for asking. It's made me contemplate that more.
No, of course, and it's profound to feel into the level of awareness you're espousing, and also, yeah, just I'm as you responded, I was aware, like, okay, if I was not to emotionally eat for 12 months, and I was like, shit, that's a lot of emotional work that needs to be done to just sit there and just not eat your way through your emotions, because I think at a certain point when you do, I think I'm around level 2, level 3, level 2, level 2 in the scale you put before, because maybe a few times a year there'll be about 3 odd days of just going without food. And one of the things I was going to say before, you mentioned a 24-hour fast, but I found a nice little hack, which was it's easy to make it to 30 to 32 because you sleep on either side of the fast, and then it's just like you get an extra 8 hours on either side of the fast.
You start in the evening, and then
16, 16, and then 8 and 8. Yeah, so it's like you're easily into 32, so that works out really well. But yeah, it's interesting to feel into how much emotions come up, and just the way you work with them is very different as well, because you are more mindful and you're more aware, and you can actually see yourself reaching for stuff. You're like, I'm reaching for my phone. I'm doom scrolling. Okay. I can see. Let me just breathe through this for a second. It's interesting that you refer to it as like it's referred to as breatharianism, because even those innate tools that I think are low-hanging fruits that you reach for in those spaces is, okay, let me just breathe through this for a sec. It's almost like it's intuitive to work with the breath in those spaces. And so, yeah, it definitely all fits intuitively. But like you said, it's this whole podcast, and I'm sure people are listening in this whole way through, and even then their belief systems are like, I can picture like a red siren just going round and round and round and round.
That's
going,
right. You're like, it doesn't make sense, but I'm drawn to it in some way,
It's a total trip. And also, I guess one of the questions worth asking is also, what else has that softened your belief systems on? Like, I'm sure that's a worthwhile question, because if you softened your belief systems on nutrition and how much is required and in what dosages and at what times, surely that's opened up your flexibility to beliefs in so many.
Happened to me in the belief that I wasn't expecting. One of them was, well, first I thought it was about food. It really isn't about food. Food is just one of the ways that we change a belief that we were born with. When we cry, we get a beautiful titty full of warm milk. And every time we get emotional, again, we get food. If we're a good kid, we get dessert. So there was like a building of you can say acts and beliefs that had to break down. And then I started doubting everything. Like the first thing that I noticed is that I'm doubting my body. How much control do I have over my body? Can I create muscle out of nothing at all? Can I go down to a few hours of sleep every night? And I was starting to check all these things out. And another thing that happened by accident, I believe, or by what I call that higher vibration, I became much more feminine. So feminine that for almost a year, I didn't want to date anyone back in the day. I felt like I'm completely in unity with myself and I'm not drawn to sexuality anymore like I was before. And it took some time, and of course, the little horny monkey came back eventually. But I was checking out more. I was more gentle. I even felt like my voice changed, and I wasn't reacting to reality. I was responding gently. So like things around me that were supposed to annoy me stopped happening. They didn't stop happening. My reaction to them stopped happening. So I became a little bit more soft with myself, more forgiving with myself, more accepting with things as they are, which was great for me because it was like a side effect I wasn't expecting.
One of the things that's present for me at this juncture in the conversation is, I guess, some of that Chinese medicine sort of adages where like the gut assimilates outside reality into inside reality, and the outside world becomes the inside world. And you mentioned before the concept of the ikigai and how, yeah, potentially without food coming in, then it's all kind of just your true reality rummaging back and forth within you as you're not eating for a while. In those periods of initiation, that is just present for me in this conversation, in this juncture. I'm not sure if there's a question in there. It's just a reflection.
Well, ask yourself in those twice a year when you're going 3 days on water, what changes inside you, and what will happen if that time would be not 3 days but years? If years you will be in that cleanness state, you know? So yes, you can eat occasionally, you can drink occasionally, but it won't be like what you're doing now, which is the main. It will be different. You'll be lighter. Your thoughts are going to be easier. They're easy in coming. The space between yourself and your higher self is becoming minimized. And so the ego is less affecting your judgment. And then you can be your true self. And your true self doesn't think about the future and it doesn't analyze the past. It's just much more present.
Wow. Ray, for those that want to check out more about your work online, I think obviously I'm a fan of your YouTube channel. There's videos coming out regularly, actually, in around everything you're doing.
I try once a week at least.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And there's obviously your own website. What are the best places for people to touch base with you?
My website, raymaor.com. And if you sign up to the newsletter, then you just get like an email once a week with the latest video and the workshops that are opening in the coming year. And like that's usually how I update my followers.
Cool. And I'll put a link to all of that in the description or in the show notes of the podcast or YouTube, wherever you're listening to this below. Yeah, a couple of rapid fire questions towards the end. What is your definition of living a good life, brother?
Joy, not happiness, joy, because joy is a perpetual state of happiness. And I'm not talking about, you can't get depressed, always happy. No, I'm talking about generally being in the 70, 80 percentile of content, of I'm okay, I'm enjoying life and everything is okay and I'm happy with what I have now. Not looking for more things to do, more like being really genuinely enjoying what you have, which is something that we all need to work on.
Definitely. How do you define God?
Wow, it's so difficult. I've had one of these experiences. I took too much of a good thing back in the day, and I really went to the other side, and I really went out of the dual experience, like with Buffo, if you've ever heard about Buffo.
I have.
So I would say that it's all, because a lot of people say, like, they try to humanize God, So God is forgiving, God is gratefulness. I think that God is also the devil. Like the blackness, it's all yin and yang, right? It's the black dot inside the white and the black, like it's the duality, our expression and the way that we perceive reality from our perspective here that has to have good and evil, right? You cannot define high without short. You cannot define ugly without beauty. From our perspective here, God is a non-dual entity that we are all a part of. But we are not him, we are a part of him, but he is greater than us. You understand?
I do.
I don't know if he created this mechanism or we created this mechanism so we can learn about ourselves. But I would say it's like the totality of things and not like an entity that says, you're good, you go to heaven, you're bad, you go to hell. I think it's more complicated than that.
Or in some ways more simpler than that as well. Yeah.
It can be more simple.
Yeah, yeah. What is the ultimate purpose of life, in your opinion?
Life has no purpose, as far as I'm concerned. That's a big one. It's a bomb. It's a bomb. I can give you the elevator pitch, even though I did make a video about it called "Life Has No Purpose" or something like that. If life has a purpose and a direction, then you can be going in the wrong direction. You understand? So it's your definition. When you don't have a definition of life, then you are free. If life has no purpose, life's purpose is handcuffing you. Because once you think that there's a purpose, you think that there's a direction, and you think that you have to go in that direction. And then when you fail on going in that direction, then you feel bad about yourself. And this is what happens, and this is where fear comes from. Christians have a fear of the wrath of God and going to hell. But if you don't have a purpose, then the purpose of life becomes what you define in that time in your life, which ultimately changes over the course of your time. When I became a parent, my purpose in life changed to become a better person, a better parent, a better dad. Suddenly, the money that I saved up wasn't to enjoy my life, but was to save up for the future of my children's life. When I was in my 30s, my purpose of life was to get more knowledge and more experiences in every way I could. When I was in my 20s, my purpose was getting laid and trying psychedelic drugs as much as I could. So the life's purpose ultimately changes, and it has no one direction. And if it has a direction, then you will always feel like you're not doing enough. You will wake up in the morning, ask yourself, why haven't I done enough? Or what can I do more? And you will go and you will seek advice from gurus and rabbis and priests, and everyone will try to seek advice from whatever it is that they think that they know. They know shit. Nobody knows what life's purpose is. So it can only be what we define as life's purpose. And we should also know that it changes according to our beliefs. Because who is the happiest? The happiest person is the person that has no life purpose, because then they can be present. Do you understand? You cannot be present if you're looking in the future. Mm-hmm. And if you have a purpose to life, then you think that you have somewhere to go to. You think that there's a direction. There's no direction. The direction can be here, can be here, can be here, can be here. You can be good, you can be bad. You can be a lover, you can be a hater. You can be a dictator, It doesn't matter. It's about expansion more than it is about having a specific direction or path or towards the light. Everybody tells me, towards the light. I want to expand. Yes, you're expanding. Evil also expands. You're not the only one expanding. There's evil going on in the planet now more than it has ever been. The internet hasn't fixed that. Democracy hasn't fixed that. So, is it a part of life's purpose? No, but it's definitely a part of life's journey.
Very interesting.
Try to feel how it feels when I tell you life has no purpose. You feel empty, and even angry. What have I been deceived? I came to this place, and there's no glory, there's no box with gold, there's nothing in the end of the tunnel. But feel how free you are when I tell you that life has no purpose. Feel inside you I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anybody. I don't have to, I don't have a timeline, I don't meet God in the end of the tunnel saying you did good in this life, you did bad in this life, and according to that I get treated. I can be free. And I use my free will to choose to be a better person and altruistic and helping people and humanity with that purpose that I created for myself. How does that make you feel? Boom. It's a bomb, isn't it?
It reminds me of, your response reminds me of Khalil Gibran when he speaks of freedom. He goes, in the grove of the temple, shadow of the citadel, I've seen the freest amongst you wear your freedom as a yoke and a handcuff. Yeah, there's some parallels to that sort of reading in the back of my head in terms of, yeah. Profound. Thank you for sharing that. Very insightful. We've discussed how people can find you online. I'll put a link to everything in the description, the show notes below. Anything left to share here today? You've covered a lot of ground in our conversation, but I just do like to ask, just in case there's something left that you wanted to share.
Well, no. Whoever feels drawn to doing a Breatharian initiation with me, don't doubt yourself. Just follow your guidance and join the initiation. It's worth it in every way.
Amazing. Brother, thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly, so openly, so transparently here with us today. As I said, big fan of everything you're putting out into the world. And just really grateful that we got to have this conversation, but also I'm sure there's been some twists and turns, as you've shared in today's story as well, that have led us to this particular conversation. Today's conversation stands on the shoulders of your life's work. So, thank you so much for who you are, Ray, and really appreciate you doing this here with us today. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Hey there, Inspired Soul. You've obviously made it through to the end of another Inspired Evolution podcast. Thank you so much for your inspirations to evolve. As always, everything you see around this channel is powered and empowered by your subscription. So please take a moment to hit subscribe on the channel. Thank you so much in advance. On screen now, you'll see an episode that we did with Dr. Julia Ross. She's well into her 80s and she looks very young and fit, and she's incredibly sharp. She has written the book called The Mood Cure, and we've done a couple of podcasts on this about how nutrition actually plays a vital role in supporting our mood, and how can we actually hack our mood for bliss. This is an incredible conversation on screen now for you to continue your inspirations to evolve further. I'll see you in the next one.